Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to part two of the unofficially marked marriage series. Um, Part two of falling in love and be Halim with matters of the heart. So listen, y'all, I got examples and all sorts of stuff came to me just from observing and even experiencing life. Me talking to these people and listening to their circumstances and their situation has been explanatory, you know, to some of the things that I've experienced in the past with, through marriage. It's like all coming together and making sense. And I want to touch on some of it later. I'm not gonna go into my situation, but just teetering on, you know, the topic and the nuances surrounding the heart and how people react and things like that. So one of the things about falling in love, right? What came to mind was is a ethar. I don't remember if this was. I think it was during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I do believe it was. But during a military expedition, some of the Sahaba they would entrust another Sahabi to write letters. I'm sorry, send the letters that they would write to their families, to their wives, and you know, the scribe he would go, or I'm sorry, what do you call him, the messenger or whatever. He would go and deliver the letters to the loved ones. So this one particular man kept going on and on about his wife. Like I said, I can't remember if it's a ethar. I do remember reading it in a hadith. So perhaps it's a ethar. I'm not sure if it was during the time of one of the khulafa or during the time of the Prophet. But anyways, he was praising his wife and saying a lot of good things about her until the point where one man fell in love with her who was listening. He fell in love with her because this man kept speaking good about his wife. So the man who fell in love with the other the other man's wife, he volunteered to take the letter to the wife. And he did. He took the letter, he delivered it, and he started to talk to the wife. And the wife started to talk to him. And they fell into zina, and the woman became pregnant. And both of them received the hudud. Both of them received the Islamic punishment for, adultery. I think the man fornication, but the woman, of course, she's pregnant, so she got the punishment for adultery. And of course, not while she was pregnant, but from there, of course, subhanallah, you have to be careful with describing people, even with sisters. Sisters, if you don't describe your friends to your husbands or your male family members, if you don't want them to get curious. So that can happen too. SubhanAllah, you didn't even see the person, but you hear so much about them. It also can happen to women. A man describing a brother who is like this and like that, he really admires him. He's just going on and on about him. I know someone that happened to. A brother used to constantly praise this individual that he loved for Allah, and his sister basically fell for that brother, wanted to marry him. So yeah, you can definitely fall for someone. Oh, and I know another situation. Someone fell in love with a woman's daughter because she bragged about her daughter so much, to the point that he was like, I have to have this woman. And he was very, very smitten. Didn't see her before, but he fell in love with her. Crazy. So Yeah, that's another way that people fall in love as well, just by hearing about the individual, the good characteristics, qualities of that person. So be careful, you know, and then, oh, let's not forget about the people who are in love with themselves, right? And they expect everyone else to be in love with them as well. You don't want to marry anybody like that. Brothers who, or women that are just in love with themselves. They need to be with themselves. That's sufficient. I remember someone told me, because I wasn't interested, I was like, you're not my type. And they were like, I'm everybody's type. I was like, well, that's nice. You want a cookie? We want some type of award or something like that? You're not my type. I'm not interested. So people who are like full of themselves, actually, there's a couple of people who, subhanAllah, they want to tell you how many women are after them, how many sisters want to marry them. Do you know, like basically they're the ones who turn down women. They have their pickings. So who are you to turn me down? Who are you to say no to me? So yeah, if you're in love with yourself, usually you're egotistical. So someone telling you no is that hurts your pride. But I mean, people like who they like, and I don't like arrogant people. I don't do that. And not everybody's arrogant. Not everyone was arrogant, but I guess because maybe these people, some of them had good qualities, so they consider that you're automatically like they're like, I'm a good catch. I'm a good catch, sis. You know? How you gonna tell me no? Anyway, moving on. It's another story that I love. Um, it was about Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah, and he was visiting one of his students in another town, and he came upon a house where it was an upper floor, and there was a young lady leaning out of the window looking around. She was looking like she's just looking like in one direction, just looking. So he asked his student, "What's wrong with her? What happened to her?" And he was informed, "Oh, she has love. She has fallen in love." And Imam Ahmed said, "A'udhu billahi min al-hub," like I seek refuge in Allah from love. Because wow, subhanallah, I thought that was so hilarious. Cause there's somebody you love have you just hanging out of the window and staring and waiting to get a glimpse of the person who you're in love with. I thought that was so funny. I thought that was so funny. And of course, an alim would say that. Like, man, subhanAllah, they have so much work to do, so much khidmah to the sunnah, worship. No one has time for that. Not that type. So, let's get into sometimes why love befalls people. These are things that I was thinking about. And again, just observing people and listening to them and their stories. Sometimes love befalls individuals because they were too hard. How I'm not sure if you guys ever met women that are really, really hard. Like maybe she had just a rough life or just a lot of rough things happened to her that made her bitter and just hard. And even men, same thing. And then someone comes along and they fall for this individual and their whole person changes. Their whole demeanor changes. Everything about them changes. It's because they needed love. So sometimes that happens to an individual because they needed it. And it changed their entire being, their inner self and their outer self. They needed to be soft because they were too hard. Also, people who were broken, they needed to be healed. You got a lot of people who are broken. And love came along and healed them from that brokenness that they were feeling. Whether it was due to childhood or Someone just breaking them. Whatever the case is, something broke them, or someone broke them, and love came and helped them along, and healed them in ways that they didn't know they needed to be healed. And then others, this is what I'm witnessing, right? SubhanAllah. People who lost themselves, right? They lost themselves. And I mean, like, I'm talking about Muslims, especially people who, like, came into Islam. They lost themselves. And, you know, they're in, they're living, they having families, they're in a new religion, a new culture, and everything that's just different from them. And they literally have zero familiarity around them that would, like, kind of keep them grounded and allow them to stay authentic. By the way, I'm gonna do a video about that too, about being authentic and being real in your practice, and because that's something important. That's a side note. But yeah, you lose yourself because you've been on unfamiliar territory for so long that you don't even know that you have abandoned or neglected your core self. So then someone comes along in your life that reminds you of your past, of who you were, right? Reminds you of who you were. And it sends people in a spiral. It unlocks feelings and emotions that were buried or even things that they forgot about. And now this individual represents good feelings of the past coupled with traumatic feelings of the past. So they cling on hard to this representative of themselves, of their old selves, what they missed about themselves, they didn't even know that they were missing. It's very interesting. Human beings are very interesting. The psyche of the human is very interesting, and I can relate to that myself. Not as relates to a person, but I would say like not music. What am I about to say? A song. I remember sitting in the car with my mother before I came over here, and a song came on, and it unlocked some. I said, "Why do I feel like crying?" It was a song from the late '80s, like I would say like '88, '89, around the time when my father was still living, and my mother and my father were together. So I was like, "Why do I didn't know that, of course. I'm jumping ahead, but I was like, "What? Why do I feel like crying right now? Why do I feel like crying?" And my mother looked at me and she was like, "Oh, this song came out when your dad, when your father was around. And it probably was like a year or so or right before he passed." So I was like, "Oh, okay, got it. That's deep." Things that you bury, you forget about. I was a kid and I loved my father tremendously. We were very close. May Allah have mercy on him. Very close. And then all of a sudden, he was taken away when I was 8. So a song took me back to a place that I didn't even know or didn't even remember that I was. You get what I'm saying? Like, the song, I'm like, okay, I haven't listened to music in years. This song, I definitely don't really, you hear it throughout the years, maybe here and there, but that really put me somewhere. And I was like, what is going on? What is this feeling? SubhanAllah. So likewise, a person, a human being, comes along who represents somewhere you came from or something that you were positively impacted by, coupled with trauma, some negativity that you felt. This individual now represents that. It will awaken something in you that was dead, that you buried, and you are chasing after it. This is what I'm witnessing. This is what I'm witnessing. Right? All right, 15 minutes. Okay? Other times, I'll expound on that in the being true and authentic to yourself video. Other times, you got individuals who have hidden illnesses. They're sick, right? Allah knows the hearts. So Allah tries this individual who is sick with someone who will they will fall in love with and reveal their illness, because this person represents something that they shouldn't have in their heart, but they do. So that love that they feel exposes the illness, puts them in a spiral, have them do actions that they were trying to hide. They didn't want anybody to know. And it's an opportunity for the individual to fix themselves, actually, to acknowledge that they're sick, to make Toba, to return from those actions, or get rid of that, or ask Allah to remove the sickness that's in their heart. But many times people don't do that. They just act on it and, try to get away with it. And if they get caught, they just feel ashamed that they got caught. So, or other people, love befalls them because they were too judgmental. And they didn't lack empathy. Like for those who, oh yeah, there's no love before marriage. Like I said, even me, I felt, I used to say, how did you fall in love? How? You must have did something wrong, because that's the culture I come from. It's like, well, as far as what I knew of it, because where I'm from, guys don't say they love you. Like, you don't hear that. You hear married people say they love you. You don't hear just like someone who is courting each other or dating say they love, oh yeah, I love her, I love him. No, you don't hear that. You don't hear that. Those are like 3 sacred words that you just don't say, and the guys do not play that. They do not tell a girl that they love them. And if they do, they're locked in. It's like, it's serious. No way they telling nobody they love them. That just doesn't happen. I've never even heard girls say that. So to me, it's just weird. To me, that's weird. So like I said, it's just where I come from. I'm coming from Philadelphia. It's a rough city, and people just don't fling that word. They don't fling those 3 words around, loosely. So yeah, it's just strange to me. Like I said, you sing about it in the songs, you feeling it, but you don't ever hear people, unless, like I said, unless they're married. You could say I love my wife, I love my husband. That's normal. You love your family members, stuff like that. But boyfriend and girlfriend, or like, no way. No way. Unless they're like in a relationship with each other for a long time. They got a kid. Yeah. They have a child, then yeah. Yeah. You could say you love somebody if you have a kid with them. Straight. Like, they're locked in forever. That's the mentality. She's forever mine because I got a kid with her. But just like, we just dating, we kicking it. No. No way. So yeah, people who fall into they being judgmental and saying that, no, how is that possible? That's wrong. Or they're just judgmental towards people who may fall into sin. So they themselves need to be humbled, and they need to learn that life is not black and white. Like my own self. Learning, okay, wow, it's not just black and white like that. It's not just cut and dry. It's not. That's reality. And if you lack empathy for sinners, even though you're a sinner, sometimes you need to fall into certain things for you to be humbled, and you can understand people and not be so judgmental, and actually just look at yourself, work on yourself, right? Like Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he said that a sin may be a means for rectification and a path to goodness. Sheikh Salih Fawzan said the sins are ni'mah. Why? Because the slave, he returns to his Lord. You're supposed to, like The all kullu bani Adam, um, you know, they sin. But the best of them are the tawabin, the ones who they make tawbah. So it's a ni'mah. It's a means to rectify yourself, to get closer to Allah, to learn lessons. If you're sincere, you're going to learn. And Allah's going to teach you. If you're repentant, you know, and things like that. And just because someone falls for someone, they fall in love with someone, it doesn't have to end in fornication. Even if the path that you took was wrong and love came about, like Ibn al-Qayyim said that, I didn't finish the statement yesterday, that falling in love is a disease and the cure for it is to marry that person, right? So you don't have to pursue your haram lust and do something wrong, and nor are you supposed to neglect your family. Like Sheikh Hussein he was talking about the person who falls, you know, in love and he becomes unjust. You make people suffer. You neglect individuals who don't need to be neglected. It's not fair to the wife, to the family. When you fall in love with somebody on the side, you know, you come on y'all, keep it moving. Keep it moving. You know, someone suffers. So you should get married if that happens to you, if you have the ability. If not, then, you know, may Allah cure your heart. If you ask Allah for help, then He'll help you. Because that's a fitna. And also put your trust in Allah. Even in something like that, you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know? And from the trials of love is that you learn lessons. You learn. Especially, like I said, if you're repentant, if it came about in the wrong way, by you being sinful, mistakes. You learn things if you're someone who learns. That's why it's so important to reflect, ponder, like Allah tells us. Reflect, ponder, think, use your intellect. Because life is not boring, y'all. It's not boring. It's always something to learn. If it's not from your own life, from the life of others. If you just pay attention to people, what they say, what they go through, and you listen to them, and you talk to them, and you ask them questions, it's so many lessons to learn, so much to learn. Life is so, you know, adventurous and exciting, to be honest. You have those lessons that you learn, those cautionary lessons where you see a person that's hard-headed, he's going into destruction, like no matter how many times you warn him and give him advice, he just doesn't listen. And then you got those who, mashallah, their stories are beautiful, you know. They take heed, they make tawbah, they go through growth, and their lives are turned around. They have good conclusions. Their lives comes to a good conclusion, a good ending. Well, not ending like they died or anything like that, but meaning like after their hardships, a lot of good came about, and their condition is better. And there's lessons in them. There's lessons in all of those things, all of those trials and tribulations people go through. There are lessons in it if you just pay attention. And even in your own lives, if you pay attention, right? And also, like with the person who is exposed, he falls in love because he has a sickness. He falls in love with something that represents the illness that's hidden. Also, the self-righteous person is exposed. The individual who thought he was beyond sinning, right? He looks down on people. He or she, he looks down on people. He thinks he's so righteous. I'm beyond this and I'm beyond that. So he gets humbled. He gets exposed for his self-righteousness, and he gets in despair. His reality is exposed. He becomes in despair, thinking, Allah will not forgive him. Oh, look at what I did. Oh, because that's how extreme you were with others. So now you suffering from your own ideas and beliefs that Allah will not forgive this person or that person. You know? How could they do such a thing? And then you are afflicted with your own convictions, your own self-doubts. And unfortunately, that's your demise because, you know, you were supposed to utilize the knowledge that you have as Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Ghafur, Al-Ghaffar, to forgive you because He's most merciful. That's what you're supposed to do. Not get in despair and all depressed because you committed a sin. No, rather, you should be learning from sins. They're beautiful. You can learn beautiful lessons from making tawbah and blaming yourself. Accountability. Beautiful lessons when I tell you. I'm going to get more into that in another video. Beautiful lessons. So don't be arrogant in your so-called righteousness. Don't be arrogant. Sins are a blessing. We don't purposely go towards sin. We don't purposely try to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not supposed to go towards sin arrogantly. Like, I know it's wrong, but I'm doing it anyway. No. It's a difference between having a weakness, you falling into something, and there's even wisdom in that. Sometimes people have to fall into sins to learn certain lessons, to uncover different problems, to fix different problems, to come to certain realizations. Sins need to be there. So to look at them as if, oh, no. We don't look at them like, oh, it's okay, it's no problem, because Allah is the most, all forgiving, most merciful. No. You shouldn't want to disobey Allah, but if it occurs, Allah is the most merciful, you rush to Tawbah. And inshallah, you learn a lesson. Take heed. Protect yourself. Even like the Sheikh Uthaymeen said, it's not a condition that you don't ever fall back into that sin, that your tawbah is accepted. No. But you constantly ask Allah to forgive you. You have the intention to make tawbah and you don't want to go back to it, even if you go back to it. And sometimes a person may be persistent upon a sin for a reason. It's a reason. It's a reason. But anyways, let's get into emotions, right? And being careful with the heart. Emotions. You got people who, they are so heedless. The Arab, they have a saying, right? Don't open the door to emotions if you aren't prepared for what comes after. That's like coming to someone and telling them you love them. That's why you shouldn't be telling people you love them. Because perhaps somebody never heard that word before from someone who's not their family members. And that unlocks something that's crazy that the person who said it wasn't prepared to deal with. Right? Be careful. Be careful with doors you open. Don't, unless you're ready. A lot of times people are not. They're not ready, nor are they equipped, and nor do they expect what was going to happen next. Don't assume that words are just lightweight and that the response is going to be lightweight. The response from the person that you said those words to will be lightweight. Don't open up doors of fitna. If they happen to open up, put your trust in Allah. You should make tawbah and ask Allah to help you. Put your trust in Allah. Ask Allah to help you and help you make the right decision. Because, no mistake is like permanent and you can't get out of it. Allah is able to help you out of whatever you fall into, whatever you get yourself into. But just be careful. Just be careful. Some people, they can't handle attention. They've never had it before, or they didn't have it in a long time. And then they become obsessed or clingy or extremely emotional in ways that the person who opened that door didn't expect. And it didn't turn out the way that the person who opened the door thought it was going to turn out. It turned into something else, right? So it's important to be conscious. Be conscious of human behavior, your own behavior, and others. Don't be selfish. Think before you do things. Just think about it. Every action has a reaction. Sometimes people, they do things for their own, to satisfy their own selves, not thinking about the repercussions that would happen. Because once you do an action, you don't have any control over the reaction. Zero. You have zero control over the outcome. So it's better to be very, very careful. Fear Allah and be careful. Like I said, things are not black and white. Things happen, and sometimes mistakes need to happen in order for people to learn lessons. So there's no such thing as being 100% cautious and things. It just doesn't have. It's just, that's not life. It's not life. So don't be afraid to live. You make mistakes, you fall, you get up, dust yourself off, ask Allah for help. But how about you got individuals who they are missing something? I think I talked about this in the other video about, like when it's time to get another wife, if a man knows he needs to get married. They're missing something, right? And they're yearning for something. But, like I said, being selfish, it's at the expense of someone else. So they open up these doors because they're missing something, they're yearning for something. So they express things to a person due to their need. And it's at the expense of the individual who they didn't know was going to react badly or in a way that they didn't expect. It could be detrimental to yourself and detrimental to the person. Because you just don't know how it's going to turn out. You really don't. I want to give y'all an example. I'm about to close out. Of this brother he's from the UK. He got married in our community. Married an African American sister as a second wife. He couldn't get enough of marrying African American women. And so did another brother from West Africa. He took African American sister from my community as a second wife, and he just kept getting married over and over and over, to the point he almost lost his mind. Like he had to leave the country just to get himself in order, because he just couldn't stop getting married. Allah Musta'an. So Allah Musta'an, sometimes if you've never had something before, you never had it, and you get a taste of something that you never had or you were longing for. Like some people from the UK, they had Jahiliyyah, or they always wanted to, or they weren't always practicing, and they wanted to be a part of American culture at one time, and they were always curious about it, and then they get their hands on it. Yeah, they kind of lose it something. Yeah, they don't want nothing else. Like, I want that. I've got to have that. We won't take anything else but that. You understand? Like losing it. So you got to be careful, man. Be careful with the heart. Be careful with the heart. It's so important. You could become obsessed, addicted. Be careful what you do. Be careful what you get yourself into. Be careful what doors you open. And that's pretty much it for now, y'all. Thanks for tuning in as usual. Don't forget that Hijrah, man-day sacrifice. Please add to the conversation. And I'll see y'all in the next video, inshallah. Ma'as salama.